You won't believe what Adam Schiff just said and how badly it exploded in his face. In the world of politics, where drama, scandal, and slip-ups are just another Tuesday, this one still managed to shock everyone. Imagine standing on a national stage, with all eyes on you, and in just a few words, you set your entire image on fire. That's exactly what Adam Schiff did when he tried to take down Pam Bondi and ended up humiliating himself in front of the entire country. This wasn't just a bad take. This was a complete PR disaster. Schiff, the polished, calculated congressman who spent years branding himself as the voice of reason in chaotic times, lost the plot and said something that's now being called one of the most unhinged political backfires of the year. And it all started with one word. One insult. One moment of arrogance that blew up in his face. Let's break it down. Adam Schiff was in the middle of a major televised interview. One of those high-profile appearances where politicians try to score a few clean shots, toss around buzzwords, and maybe earn a headline or two. Pam Bondi's name came up. And instead of debating her points or countering with facts like any serious leader would do, Schiff went full attack dog. He leaned in, and with a smug little grin, dropped this line: "You've got these political thugs like Pam Bondi parading around as if they're credible legal experts." Yep. He called her a thug. On national TV. With cameras rolling, reporters scribbling, and millions watching. You could almost hear the air leave the room. And no, this wasn't a slip-up. It wasn't taken out of context. Schiff didn't flinch. He delivered it like it was some kind of zinger. But what it really was the beginning of a full-blown political meltdown. Because calling Pam Bondi, a former Florida attorney general, a seasoned prosecutor, someone who spent years fighting actual crime, a thug? That's not just petty. It's insulting, loaded, and way out of line. Pam Bondi has spent her entire legal career putting away actual criminals. Drug lords. Traffickers. White-collar conmen. And now, suddenly, because she criticized Schiff's political moves, she's a thug? That's not a rebuttal. That's an emotional tantrum disguised as rhetoric. And people immediately saw through it. Within minutes of the interview airing, social media exploded. The clip was everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube Shorts. It spread like wildfire, and not in the way Schiff probably hoped. The comments were brutal. Some viewers called him desperate. Others said he looked completely rattled. And many called out the obvious hypocrisy. Here's the guy who lectures everyone on respectful dialogue, restoring civility in politics, and defending democracy, calling a woman with a 30-year legal career a thug? Not a good look. Not even close. Even people who don't usually agree with Pam Bondi were slamming Schiff. One liberal commentator tweeted, "Look, I don't align with Bondi's politics, but this was straight up gross. Do better." And then came the receipts. The internet started pulling up old footage, past interviews, panel appearances, and hearing clips. And guess what? Schiff's got a history. A pattern. People dug up clips of him interrupting, mocking, and dismissing other conservative women. Eye rolls. Condescending tone. Talking over them like their opinions didn't matter. So suddenly this wasn't just about one comment. It was about a reputation crumbling in real time. Schiff, who's spent years presenting himself as the smart, collected, above-the-fray leader. Exposed. Just another politician who throws cheap shots when cornered. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi? She wasn't even trying to start a fight. All she'd done was critique Schiff's legal posturing. Pointing out flaws, inconsistencies, and weak arguments in his recent commentary. She came with receipts. She came with legal precision. And Schiff responded by calling her a thug? That's not strength. That's weakness dressed up as bravado. And here's the twist: he could have owned it. He could have walked it back. But nope. Total silence. No apology. No clarification. Just a smug smirk, followed by a storm of backlash he clearly didn't see coming. Behind the scenes, insiders say his team was panicking. One aide anonymously told a reporter, "We told him to keep it professional. He didn't." Now, the very word he chose to hurt Pam Bondi has turned into the headline, destroying his own credibility. He lit the match, and now he's stuck in the smoke. And this? This is only the beginning. Because Pam Bondi isn't staying quiet. And what she said next, well, it made this look even worse. Stick around, because her comeback was brutal, and the fallout? Oh, it's just getting started. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for Adam Schiff, Pam Bondi stepped in. And she didn't just clap back, she unleashed a calm, calculated, professional beatdown that left Schiff looking even more ridiculous than before. Within hours of the clip going viral, Bondi appeared live on multiple networks. No shouting. No theatrics. Just straight facts and a tone so composed, it made Schiff look even more out of control by comparison. And let's be clear. She did not hold back. Right off the bat, Bondi addressed the insult head-on. She looked straight into the camera and said, "I've prosecuted thugs. I've put dangerous people behind bars. That's my record. That's what I do. So for Adam Schiff to call me a thug for holding him accountable? That's not just wrong, it's pathetic." You could practically hear the mic drop. And she didn't stop there. Bondi went on to remind viewers who she is and what she's done. This isn't someone who wandered into politics for attention. This is a woman who fought real crime, served 2 terms as Florida's top law enforcement officer, and went toe-to-toe with cartels, corrupt officials, and predators. She calmly said, "If Adam Schiff thinks he can intimidate me with a name, he picked the wrong woman." The internet loved it. Clips of Bondi's response racked up millions of views. People flooded the comments with praise. "Classy and lethal," one user wrote. "She just buried him without raising her voice," said another. And they were right, she didn't scream. She didn't insult. She just stated the truth. And that's what made it hurt so much more for Schiff. Because here's the reality, when someone tries to throw mud at you, and you don't flinch? That's powerful. When you hit back with facts instead of emotion? That's even more powerful. Bondi didn't just defend herself, she flipped the entire narrative. And while Bondi was out there, handling the situation like a pro, Schiff went completely silent. No response. No apology. Not even a weak excuse. Just the sound of someone who suddenly realized he couldn't win this fight. And you know what's even more embarrassing? Schiff had no idea what kind of opponent he was dealing with. He underestimated Bondi. Maybe he thought he could toss out an insult and walk away with applause. But what he walked into was a political buzzsaw with a law degree. And she cut him down without breaking a sweat. And it didn't stop with just Bondi's response. The ripple effect was massive. Other conservative leaders and legal experts came forward to back her up. Former prosecutors. Judges. Even a few moderate Democrats quietly admitted that Schiff had crossed the line. Several prominent women in law and politics started reposting Bondi's interview, praising how she handled herself. This wasn't just a gotcha moment for Bondi. This was a career highlight. She came out of this not only stronger, but more respected. Her following surged. Interview requests poured in. Even people who didn't always agree with her politics were applauding how she turned an ugly moment into a lesson in grace under pressure. Meanwhile, Schiff? He was trending, for all the wrong reasons. Headlines started rolling in, Schiff slammed for thug remark, Pam Bondi delivers devastating response, political backfire of the week, and the meme machine? Oh, it was working overtime. One viral meme showed Bondi sitting calmly with the caption, "This is how you deal with clowns." Another showed Schiff with a caption that just said, "Oops." The damage was done. Schiff tried to undermine Bondi's credibility, but instead, he boosted her platform. He tried to throw shade, and he ended up in the dark. And Bondi? She walked away untouched and, in many ways, more powerful than before. But we're not done yet. Because while Schiff was licking his wounds and Bondi was winning the internet, the backlash from everyday Americans was only just beginning. People started digging deeper, asking harder questions, and calling out something that's been bubbling under the surface for a long time. What happens when politicians think they're untouchable? That's what comes next. Because this moment? It didn't just damage Schiff's reputation. It cracked open a much bigger issue. And what followed made the backlash even louder. Stay tuned, because the internet wasn't done with Schiff. Not even close. Schiff just got steamrolled by Pam Bondi on live TV, his credibility is hanging by a thread, and the public? Oh, the public was just getting warmed up. The internet didn't just react, it erupted. Within 24 hours of Bondi's clapback, it was everywhere. Clips were bouncing across Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Millions of views, thousands of comments, and a message that couldn't be clearer: Adam Schiff messed with the wrong person. Let's talk about the reaction, because this wasn't just the usual left versus right flame war. This time, Schiff triggered a full-on backlash from across the political spectrum. Conservatives, obviously, had a field day. They called it karma. They said it was proof that Schiff couldn't handle a strong woman with facts on her side. But even more surprising? A huge wave of independents and moderate liberals started chiming in, and they weren't defending him either. One Twitter user, verified, blue check, and typically center-left, wrote, "You can disagree with Pam Bondi all day long, but Schiff crossed a line. That was ugly and beneath someone who claims to be a defender of democracy." Another said, "I'm embarrassed I used to support this guy. He's clearly unraveling." The hashtags started trending. Hashtag Schiff backfire, hashtag Thuggate, and my personal favorite, hashtag Pam handled it. It wasn't just tweets. Entire reaction videos started popping up on YouTube. Political commentary channels from both sides jumped on it, analyzing Bondi's response, breaking down Schiff's insult, and pointing out the massive hypocrisy. And let's not forget the memes. Oh man, the memes were relentless. There was one of Schiff with his foot in his mouth, captioned, "Open mouth. Insert career." Another one had Pam Bondi photoshopped as a judge holding a gavel, with Schiff sitting in the courtroom like a scolded kid. When memes are more accurate than the headlines, you know you're in trouble. But here's where it gets even worse for Schiff. While all of this was going down, the story was being picked up by major outlets. What started as a viral clip turned into real news coverage. And not in the way Schiff wanted. Fox News ran with it immediately, calling it a low blow and a desperate attempt to smear a legitimate critic. But even CNN and MSNBC had to acknowledge that Bondi's response was poised and professional, while Schiff's attack felt more personal than political. By the end of the week, this wasn't just a social media firestorm. It was a legit narrative crisis for Schiff. Political analysts started weighing in, and the consensus was brutal: he looked unprepared. He sounded rattled. And worst of all, he exposed himself as exactly the kind of political bully he always claims to fight against. And as the criticism kept pouring in, what did Schiff do? Nothing. No tweet. No public statement. Not even a quick "my words were poorly chosen" kind of PR line. Radio silence. And that silence? That said everything. People noticed. People asked, why won't he clarify? Why won't he apologize? And that's when folks started digging deeper. Looking into Schiff's past remarks, his attitude toward critics, and his tendency to dismiss anyone who challenges him with cold, smug put-downs. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Bondi anymore. It was about a pattern. The comments sections lit up with people saying things like, "He's always been like this. He just got caught this time. This is what happens when power goes unchecked. This guy doesn't debate, he insults and hides. And look, this isn't just about ego. It's about trust." Schiff has positioned himself for years as this calm, level-headed adult in the room. The guy who's above the nonsense. But now? That image is crumbling. You can't go on national TV, call a former attorney general a thug, and expect to walk away clean. Not anymore. Not when the public's got receipts. Not when the internet never forgets. And while Schiff was hoping this would blow over, it didn't. In fact, the silence made it worse. Every hour he stayed quiet, people got louder. Every day he avoided the topic, more headlines popped up. And the narrative was now completely out of his control. Pam Bondi won the moment. The internet sealed the verdict. But here's the question everyone's asking now: was this just a one-off moment of bad judgment? Or did Schiff just expose something much deeper, something that's been hiding behind that polished, media-friendly image for years? We'll dig into that next, because the irony, the hypocrisy, and the political fallout? Oh, it runs so much deeper than just one insult. So here's where things go from embarrassing to downright ironic. Because let's talk about who Adam Schiff pretends to be and who he just showed the world he really is. For years, Schiff has branded himself as the polished statesman. The calm, collected voice of reason. The guy who rises above name-calling, who speaks about restoring dignity in politics, who constantly lectures the country on civility, unity, and fairness. You know the type. Every interview, every hearing, every press conference, he positions himself like he's some kind of moral compass for Congress. The adult in the room. But then, he calls Pam Bondi a thug. Not in a heated debate. Not off camera. On national television. On purpose. With a smirk. You don't need to be a political strategist to see the hypocrisy screaming off the screen. Schiff's entire political brand is built on the idea that he's above this. That he's the one holding back the tide of toxic rhetoric. But in just one moment, he proved he's no different than the people he condemns. This is the same Adam Schiff who stood on the House floor during the Trump impeachment and said, quote, "We must be better than this. We must act with integrity, with decency." And now he's out here throwing around loaded language like thug just because a woman dared to criticize him? That's not integrity. That's insecurity. That's the mask slipping. And it gets worse when you realize he wasn't even talking to Bondi directly. He wasn't in a face-to-face debate. He was sitting in a friendly studio, being interviewed, taking softballs, and still, he couldn't keep his composure. So if this is how Schiff behaves when he's not under pressure, what does that say about his judgment? But here's the real kicker. Schiff's silence after the fact? The refusal to walk it back? That just poured gasoline on the fire. Because instead of acknowledging the mistake and resetting the tone, he did what arrogant politicians always do: he acted like it never happened. No accountability. No explanation. Just pretend it's business as usual and hope people forget. Spoiler, they didn't. People saw the double standard in real time. Imagine if a Republican congressman had called a prominent liberal woman, say, Kamala Harris or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a thug. Imagine the headlines. The think pieces. The panels. Schiff himself would probably be the first one screaming for an apology. But because it was him doing the name-calling and his political enemy taking the hit, he stays quiet. That's the part that really hit a nerve with people. Because this isn't about party lines anymore, it's about principle. And Schiff, for all his speeches and soundbites, just showed he's only interested in decency when it serves his side. When it makes him look good. And that, right there, is the moment things changed. This wasn't just a PR blunder. It wasn't just a viral moment gone wrong. It was a reveal. A full-blown character reveal. And what people saw wasn't pretty. Because once the mask comes off, you can't just put it back on and act like nothing happened. Schiff's credibility took a massive hit, and the most damaging part? He did it to himself. All it took was one word. But the fallout? That's still growing. The silence is still deafening. The backlash hasn't slowed. And now, people are asking questions that go way beyond one insult. People are wondering, is Adam Schiff actually the ethical leader he claims to be? Or is he just another political opportunist with a polished script and a short temper? And let's not forget, this isn't some random moment in the news cycle. Schiff is positioning himself for higher office. Some even speculate he's eyeing a Senate seat. But how does a man who can't own his own words expect to lead at a national level? How can someone who attacks respected legal professionals on live TV claim to be the standard bearer of justice and fairness? The truth is, he can't. And voters are starting to notice. Social media hasn't moved on. In fact, people are getting louder. Opinion columns are piling up. Even some in his own party are calling for a statement, a retraction, something. But Schiff just keeps pretending it didn't happen. Like the footage isn't out there, like Bondi didn't completely dismantle him, like the public didn't just watch him get exposed. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi? She's standing taller than ever. Her platform has grown. Her message is resonating. And ironically, Adam Schiff, who tried to tear her down, ended up making her stronger. All because he couldn't handle being challenged by someone smarter, sharper, and more disciplined than him. So, where does this all go? Maybe Schiff finally addresses it. Maybe he doubles down again. Or maybe, this moment becomes the one that quietly haunts his future campaigns. That one clip. That one word. That one arrogant misstep that made millions of Americans see through the image. Because politics today isn't just about speeches and handshakes anymore. It's about authenticity. It's about how you handle opposition. And it's about what you do when the spotlight's burning hot. Schiff had a choice. He could have risen to the occasion. He could have debated Bondi on substance. But instead, he chose an insult. And that insult? Backfired. Hard. So what do you think? Did Adam Schiff just torpedo his own credibility? Was Pam Bondi's response the most savage political comeback of the year? Drop your thoughts in the comments, we want to hear everything. Fire, and if you enjoyed watching this train wreck unfold as much as we did breaking it down, make sure to hit that like button, smash subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment when the truth cuts through the noise. Because in a world full of spin, we bring the facts with zero fluff. Until next time, stay sharp, stay informed, and remember, sometimes the loudest people in the room are the ones with the least to say. See you in the next video.